Hello, I'm Sadia Faruqi, author of several books for kids, including the Yasmin series and middle grade novels like A Thousand Questions. Today, I'd like to introduce a new book, Yusuf Azeem is Not a Hero. This is a middle grade realistic fiction novel for kids aged 8 to 12 or maybe 10 to 12 years, and the release date is September 7th, 2021. It's also set mostly in the year 2021, when, among other things, our nation commemorates the 20th anniversary of 9/11. I know, it's been a while. The main character is Yusuf, obviously. He's almost 12 years old, and he doesn't really understand why this event, 9/11, is so important for the adults, why they get sad or mad or silent when he wants to talk about it. Yusuf lives in a tiny Texas town called Frey. He's oh my gosh, a sweet, nerdy boy with a dream of participating and winning a regional robotics competition that he's been preparing for forever and making his family and school proud of him. But at the moment, things are not very well in Frey. As the anniversary of 9/11 draws closer, people are getting restless around him. His small Muslim community is facing unexpected roadblocks in the construction of a new mosque. There's a group of white supremacists called the Patriot Boys who've rolled into town and are riling everyone up. And just like 20 years ago, Yusuf and his Muslim American community in Frey have suddenly become public enemy number one. As he grapples almost to understand what's going on around him, there's bullying in schools, there's vandalism in the neighborhoods. Yusuf starts to read his uncle Rahman's journal. Rahman was around his age, 12 years or so, when 9/11 actually occurred in 2001. And his uncle lived through a time when Muslims everywhere within our country were targeted. They were treated with suspicion, hatred, even violence. As Yusuf reads his uncle's heartbreaking account, he learns that although 20 years have passed since then, unfortunately, some things have not changed at all. But what can he do? He's 12 years old, he's just a kid. All he wants to do is go to school, win the robotics competition, um, have fun with his friends. But he knows he has to do something, anything. His friends and even his family keep telling him to stop trying to be a hero, keep his head down, and do nothing. After all, that's how the Muslim American community has tried to live their lives in the last 20 years. They tell him, don't challenge anything, don't make waves, just keep your head down and pretend that everything will be okay. But Uncle Rahman's journal has showed Yusuf something really important. It's shown why doing what everyone is telling him to do, why that's a bad idea. Because if you don't do anything, then nothing changes. And as a result, bullies become stronger and more violent, whether they're bullies in school or adult bullies. They're happy when nobody does anything. So, anyway, in the story, as things get worse and worse in Frey, Yusuf decides that somebody has to be a hero. And if nobody else wants that job, maybe he'll just have to stand up and take the courage and do it himself. As you can probably guess from my book description today, this is a book with some very serious themes. In a world where middle grade readers are so disconnected with historical events like 9/11 because they happened so much before the kids today were born, it's hard for them to understand the significance of these events. I hope that books like this one, Yusuf Azeem is Not a Hero, I hope these books will show them why events that happened in the past are important to learn about. 9/11 changed our lives, not just personally for many of us, but also culturally and politically for us as a nation and for us as a world. Unfortunately, Americans reacted to each other in a way that wasn't always good. We were hurting and we hurt each other, and not just in our communities, but also abroad through wars. It shaped an entire generation of kids who grew up in a post 9/11 world, and it's still shaping my kids and your kids today, even if they don't know about it. There are 1,000 different ways in which the last 20 years have affected our lives and how we think and how we do things and how we are. How do I know this? Because for the last 20 years, I've been doing the work of interfaith activism. Ever since the day after 9/11, I knew that I had to do something. Um, I've tried to bring people together and talk through events and dinners and dialogues and book clubs. And honestly, I do the same thing with my writing. Pick up any of my books and you'll see my mission and my passion clearly through the words, even though they're fictional stories. You'll understand what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to bring people together, trying to help them understand each other's perspective and see each other as friends, not enemies. I may be a storyteller, but all my stories have kernels of uncomfortable truth in them, truths we should face, talk about, learn from. Um, that's how I am, and that's how my books are, and that's how this book is. So if you're an educator or a librarian or a parent or even a bookseller, I hope you'll realize why stories like these are essential for all of us. We can't really hope to heal as a nation unless we talk about what happened 20 years ago and how it affected all of us. Yes, the innocent victims who lost their lives and the incredibly brave first responders who tried to save them, but also the average brown person who got caught up in the political rhetoric after the attacks. Think about the American citizen who had family in Iraq or Afghanistan and worried for their safety. Think about the Muslim kid in school, like me or my siblings or my friends who got called terrible things like, I don't know, terrorist or Osama's cousin. Yes, that did happen and still happens. Or they were told to go back home because we don't need your kind here. Those people also need to be acknowledged because they're also part of the story. They're part of our history. And that's something that we need to learn from, especially if we weren't even around at that time, especially our kids, especially our young people. Yusuf Azeem is not a hero. I love the cover, that's why I keep showing it. Is a middle grade novel, but I promise you that it's a good read for adults as well. The story goes back and forth in time with Yusuf's timeline kind of interspersed with journal entries by his uncle in 2001. So you go back and forth. Um, it's not at all a sad book, even though there are sad, even violent parts in it. If you're an empathetic person, you might be crying by the end of it, but you will also be laughing in parts of it. There are jokes and sweetness, and of course, robotics, a high stakes robotic competition to be exact. And the ending is very much hopeful. I put in a lot of lessons I learned as an interfaith activist in this book, especially how to heal and how to help each other. So it's kind of almost a roadblock, not just a story about how Yusuf becomes a hero, but how each of us can in our little spheres of influence. I hope you read this book. Yusuf Azeem is not a hero. I'm going to show it one last time and recommend it to others. Thank you for listening and happy reading.